Hey everyone, it's Ed Gutowski here. What I wanted to do was to create a short lecture where I talked about the next phase of understanding rhetoric and argument. Hey, I've read all your discussion boards posts and they were fantastic. I love what you had to say about rhetoric and argument. And everyone had great definitions. Some students like to use the word persuade as their form of rhetoric. However, I am going to maintain my definition of rhetoric. So as of week 2, my definition of rhetoric is still going to be words that are used to manipulate, deceive, and con people. And what we're going to see over the course of the course is in the upcoming weeks, I'm going to defend my definition, and I'm going to see if, in fact, I can persuade you that my definition is accurate. But for right now, what I want to do is to talk about the next step of understanding how rhetoric and argument work. So rhetoric and argument use three things. Rhetoric and argument always use, and I'm going to show you the word as I talk about, they use logos, pathos, and finally they use ethos. And some of you may be familiar with these words, some of you maybe the first time that you've ever heard these words, which is fine. But if we look at the first word, we look at the word logos. Logos is the one that most students can easily identify because logos stands for logic. And so if you think about it, if you define rhetoric as the ability to persuade, it would make sense that you'd want to use logic as a means to persuade someone. Now, pathos is the one that sometimes stumps students, right? But pathos stands for emotion. And I sometimes try to think about how to create a mnemonic with the word P to remember emotion. So I sometimes think about people who are passionate, are always good at using rhetoric. So pathos is emotion. And pathos, if you accept my definition of rhetoric as words used to mislead, deceive, and con people, well, if you wanted to manipulate someone, it would make sense that you want to cater to people's emotions. We're all emotional beings. Always thinking Shakespeare's famous play Othello, Iago is trying to manipulate Othello, and Othello is just smart. He's very good at using reasoning and logic. So the way that Iago convinces Othello to kill his wife is through using pathos, through using emotion and convincing Othello that his wife is cheating on him. So logos is logic, pathos is emotion. The last one is ethos. And ethos can be defined two words. Ethos can be defined as character or authority, which talks about the credibility of the speaker, or sometimes ethos can be defined as ethics. I will not define ethos as ethics because in a couple of weeks we're going to look at a specific argument called stasis theory that deals with the moral and ethical issue. So I will define ethos as character and authority or credibility. So the agenda for this week is pretty straightforward. You have 2 discussion board questions and you have 2 quizzes where you have to get up to about page 100 and into the wild. The first discussion board question, I want you to think about logos, pathos, ethos. And I want to know which one do you consider to be the most important and why. But then there are I think 4 speeches in our Siegel Reader that I want you to look over. And I want you to read over and I want you to just pick one. There's Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, Eisenhower's speech. And I want to know why you picked that speech and how it might have used logos, pathos, and ethos. So that's our agenda. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. Otherwise, I'll look forward to what you have to say at the end of the week. Take care. Bye.